Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of On The Sidelines. My name's Matthew Liam Bruni.
My name is Benedict Rhodes.
And as usual, we hope everyone continues to stay safe during this continuing COVID pandemic. Anything interesting happening with you, Ben, lately?
No, not really. Just the usual, I guess. School and nothing else really. What about you?
Same for me. Just school and work is all it is right now. But obviously, there are a lot of sports to get into. Of course, we're going to start out with the big game. Do you want to just introduce that?
Oh yeah, of course. The big game, as you said, Super Bowl Sunday, Super Bowl 55 was this past weekend. Tampa Bay Buccaneers took on the Kansas City Chiefs and took the game 31-9 in the end. Tom Brady, seventh Super Bowl ring and another Super Bowl MVP for him as well. What were your thoughts on that game overall?
Yeah, totally did not expect that end result. Like a 31-9 result was something I was definitely not expecting from this Super Bowl. I mean, obviously, coming in, I was expecting a lot more offense from the Kansas City side, but obviously the Tampa Bay defense had other plans that night. Um, and I think just throughout that whole game, yeah, like Mahomes just kept being pressured by the Tampa Bay defense a lot. And, he didn't really obviously, he didn't score a touchdown for his team. He only led them to three field goals, which is not Mahomes' kind of thing to do. But yeah, I mean, I was shocked that really did not score a lot, and that Tampa Bay's defense really came out to play.
Yeah, definitely. You mentioned Tampa Bay's defense. That was the difference, I think, in that game. Like you said, they kept putting Patrick Mahomes under pressure. Mahomes did make some really, really amazing throws, but the receivers didn't help him out much. Like there was one play, probably the play of the game, maybe even the play of the decade if he caught it, where Mahomes was running to one side and was like horizontal, like parallel with the ground, and somehow managed to get off a perfect throw into the end zone. And I can't remember who it was, but whoever was on the receiving end didn't catch it. And they lost some very valuable points on a very impressive play by Mahomes. So yeah, the Chiefs just couldn't get it going offensively, and the Bucks could, and I guess that was ultimately the difference.
Yeah, I mean, also he did throw two interceptions there, and you did mention that he had some miraculous throws that weren't obviously catched, but um, yeah, he threw two interceptions in that game where obviously it was the game changer and obviously the game-ending interception, and then uh, the other one I can't remember which quarter specifically, but yeah, it definitely just showed like obviously it's tough. It's going to be tougher now for Patrick Mahomes to get to seven rings. I guess now we can say best Tom Brady's level, but I mean obviously anything can happen, but yeah, that was definitely a big storyline, though.
Yeah, for sure. Ariana Grande's song written about Tom Brady, of course, seven rings, and um, one person who didn't drop a football off a lot in that game was Rob Gronkowski, who had two touchdowns on the night. Kind of forgot if it was 2021 or 2011 for a little bit there. Tom Brady and Rob Gronkowski linking up perfectly for a lot of the night. What do you make of Rob Gronkowski's performance?
Yeah, it's just like back in the older Patriots dynasty days. Essentially, like I thought I was watching the Pats versus the Chiefs in the Super Bowl. Obviously, the two AFC teams, so they couldn't face each other off anyways. But it just felt like a Patriots Super Bowl typical kind of game with as you mentioned, Gronkowski catching two touchdowns and obviously playing a big role in this Tampa Bay offense that exploded for 31 points on Sunday. And even besides Gronkowski, like their leading rusher Leonard Fournette on the night had around I think it was 90 yards or 89 if I'm not wrong. So he also played a big role for their team. But yeah, just with all those with all the playmakers they have on their offense, and also Antonio Brown who caught a touchdown, and also Leonard Fournette. So yeah, definitely a lot of offensive playmakers for that Tampa Bay team.
And a big storyline coming into this game as well was, would the Kansas City Chiefs um, win back-to-back Super Bowls and be the first team to do that since the Patriots did it last decade, I believe. So my question for you now is: do you think the Buccaneers will go back to back, or do you think they have a chance of going back to back?
Um, It's tough to say now because obviously there's it's going to be what's supposed to be a crazy offseason with a lot of quarterbacks supposed to be moved this offseason. So I mean, we'll have to see what happens there, and then of course the draft. Um, but yeah, I think it's obviously impossible, other than if you're a Patriots team or previous dynasties, I guess you can say. It's tough to repeat as Super Bowl champions, and obviously it showed on Sunday with the Chiefs, and the way they came out in that game. But I'll say for now that they won't repeat. Maybe I'll come back to it in a couple months, depending on how the offseason goes with the QB situation on a lot of teams. That's supposed to become hectic. Um, and yeah, we'll just I'll say for now though, no. But what would you say?
Um, well, picking the opposite of your prediction seems to be working out for me at the moment. The last couple of videos, so I'll say they will go back to back, just for that one reason, just so I can be right again.
I don't know about that one, but okay.
And speaking of predictions, okay, as we're about to mention, we did make some predictions for the Super Bowl. One of them being, of course, who would win, and I got that one right, saying it would be the Bucks. And we also made some other sort of more fun, I guess, predictions with things like the coin toss and these other kind of like smaller, more fun predictions, I guess. What do I kind of see, or do I kind of say who won those ones? I guess.
Yeah, so yeah, last week, as you mentioned in our Super Bowl or a week ago or so in our Super Bowl preview video, we made predictions for things like the coin toss, the who would be leading at halftime, the anthem over under 2 minutes, the Gatorade color for the winning team, of course, the Bucks, and the over under total for the night. And you won, Ben, on a 3-2 score. I think we essentially went against everything. We all picked
Yeah.
against each other, but yeah, I said that the Chiefs won the coin toss, and then the Bucks would be leading at halftime as well. And then you said that the anthem would be over, the Gatorade color would be blue, and the over under would be less. So yeah, there's definitely a lot of close picks though, because it was a 3-2 win by you.
Yeah, I like Tom Brady. I guess I'm just a goat. I guess. What can I say? Nothing else to it really.
Yeah, I mean, I guess can't go wrong with can't go wrong with Brady in the Super Bowl, I guess. Obviously, yeah, just can't go wrong.
Um, Anything else you want to talk about Super Bowl before we move on, or NFL generally?
Um, I I don't. I mean, I'll just say yeah, like I said, I was just to summarize, I was shocked as everybody to see that end result and just yeah, we'll have to see what happens with the off season and what both teams do.
Yeah, for sure. And what did you say about the season overall? Right, like a lot of questions were asked about the NFL. Like they decided to play with fans, they decided to go market to market. A lot of people thought the season wouldn't end up being finished, or there'd be a lot more problems, I guess, than there actually were. What would you say the season was a success overall from an NFL perspective?
I'd say that there was definitely some challenges. I mean, yeah, you there were a lot of people saying that it might not be getting to this point where after obviously a couple days after the Super Bowl where we crowned a champion. But I think yeah, there was with all the struggles that were coming into the season, and obviously during the season with all the COVID outbreaks and having to move team games, like especially we had one game on a Wednesday. I think it was the Ravens and Steelers. So yeah, a lot of challenges to overcome with the NFL. I'd say they've done a good job. I'll say maybe not a perfect job because obviously with all the challenges they face, but yeah, they got it done in the end though.
Yeah, definitely. I think overall, the NFL maybe didn't do everything perfectly, like you said, but they got where they needed to be. I guess it just was having a season and finishing that season. So and then 20,000 fans at an impressive Super Bowl. So hopefully everyone went to that was safe as well. The weekend did a great job at his halftime show as well. A little Toronto representation for us, and um, overall, I'd say it was a pretty successful year for the NFL.
Yeah, definitely, and we'll have to hopefully there won't be any other continuing major issues with COVID. Obviously, hopefully it gets better for them, and they won't
Let's hope
have.
again.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully they won't have as many major issues that as they had this past season. But obviously, time will tell at this point.
Yeah, definitely. Is that it for NFL
Yeah,
for now
I
anyway?
think I'm good if you are. If nothing else to add, I guess we'll move on to the NHL season, which is just coming up to a month old tomorrow, I should say. Um, I guess I'll start by saying, obviously, it's way too early to determine contenders, but I mean, we'll ask the question anyway and say, do you see any early Stanley Cup contenders, especially with all the pauses we've seen recently with teams? But we'll get to that later.
Yeah, there's a couple that stand out. I guess the Leafs, of course, of the top of the North Division. They've played 14 games, won 11, lost twice, and one overtime loss. So they look really good. Um, and also in the Central Division, you have the Lightning, the reigning champions, of course, who are 9-2-1. So those teams are off to very good starts. Both of them have games in hand on teams behind them as well. Um, so those are kind of the two that stand out immediately for me. What about you?
Yeah, I'd say the Leafs too. I mean, also one team I'll add is Montreal,
Yeah.
who's been playing well too. Obviously, they just lost to the Leafs on Wednesday, but yeah, I think them and the Leafs, I think, are the true contenders of the North Division. I'll say, and I guess outside of the Canadian division, I think also you mentioned Tampa. There's also like the Bruins, obviously, and the Flyers, who are currently on pause right now. The Capitals, and also Vegas too. So that's just, I guess, a handful of teams that uh, are some true contenders so far. But obviously, one team probably can come out of nowhere in the playoffs and shock us all. But yeah, that I'll just say that for now. That just like a handful of teams.
And the Golden Knights are a good one too. Like you mentioned, they've only played 11 games, so two more than the Blues are right behind them, and they have 17 points to the Blues 16. So they could start to pull away a little bit if they win those games in hand, especially if they're against the Blues, of course.
Yeah, and I mean, right now, the East Division, I think, is one of the more. I mean, besides like the Central, I would say. I mean, I'd say every division right now is tight, but like definitely in the Eastern Conference. When I mean, I said going to the season there'd be like 4 or 5 contenders in this division, and obviously with the Bruins, Flyers, Caps, Islanders, and Pittsburgh Penguins all being contenders this season have. I mean, it's been a tight division so far, I'd say.
Yeah, everyone from first to last in that division are only separated by 10 points. So still a lot of season left, of course. So realistically, any of those eight could be in the playoffs. So I don't think some of the lower ones will, of course, but realistically, in the East Division, especially, there's not much difference, and in the West Division as well, between first and last, there's only 6 points difference. So definitely, a lot can change in a few months left in the season.
Yeah, I mean, also something else to look out for, I guess, focusing on the North Division again, is the who the final team. Because I mean, obviously going into the playoffs, we're going to assume that if bearing any crazy letdown, that the Leafs, Habs, and probably even the Oilers might make the playoffs this upcoming season. But also, we're trying to see who the fourth team is going to be potentially going into the playoffs with, of course, Winnipeg, Calgary in Vancouver, who's definitely struggled a lot. But yeah, who would you? I think we predicted this before, but yeah, who would you say right now is like fit for to be a playoff team?
Yeah, I think it's fair to say the Leafs and the Canadians are by far the best two teams in Canada at the moment. A lot of people are comfortable saying that the Leafs are much better than the Canadians, which I'm not quite comfortable ready to say yet. But those are definitely going to be the top two. I don't think that's within question. Um, the Oilers in third, I think they're going to be good enough to fit on top four, but it is pretty close. And if anything happens to Connor McDavid, I don't fancy their chances of making the playoffs. Um, so I will say the Oilers will make it in though, and I think it's between the Jets and the Flames for that fourth spot. The Canucks have had a bit of a bad run, and the Senators are terrible right now. They have 5 points in 15 games. So the Senators are definitely out, I think. And that's fair to say. And then between the Jets and the Flames, for me, I think I might lean the way it is right now. Like, I think they might finish the way it is right now with the Jets coming in fourth and the Flames fifth and the Canucks sixth. Um, I think the Jets have a very good group of forwards, which I think could be the difference in a lot of these games, especially if Pierre-Luc Dubois picks up the pace to the level he's capable of playing at. And they have a very good team over in Winnipeg. So on paper, anyway. So um, if I had to guess, I think that would be my top four. What about you?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's no doubt that Ottawa is not going to make the playoffs this season. I think all of us can. I mean, definitely going into the season, we expected nothing much from the Ottawa Senators, and obviously, it shows in the standings right now. But I guess talking about the who would make the playoffs. Obviously, you mentioned the Leafs and Habs. I think undoubtedly right now are the best teams in the Canadian division. And obviously with that Edmonton to Vancouver, those four teams in that group there, I think it's. I mean, obviously it's too early to say who will make it, but for me, I'm gonna actually say Edmonton and Calgary make the playoffs. I think obviously the acquisition of Pierre-Luc Dubois helps the Jets, but I think Calgary may bounce back. Obviously, they're playing Vancouver a lot in the next coming days. They have a three-game series with sorry, I should say four-game series. They started last night with a win against them. So I mean, if they get some bounce back games against these subpar teams like Vancouver and Ottawa, and if they play up to the competition against like they did against the Oilers on Saturday night, I think yeah they might like I can say right now that they might make the playoffs, but obviously anything can change.
And of course, when you have a player like Kachuk on your team, we've talked about this in the past as well. He's a pain to play against, I'm sure. Um, he draws penalties. He fights people. He scores goals sometimes too. Some really nice goals. He's sort of every opposition player's worst nightmare, I guess. So having a scrappy player like that could definitely help them. I think he's a playoff player, if that makes sense. He's scrappy and he's also very talented. So he could be the difference maker for the Flames, I think, as we head towards that sort of part of the season where the standings might sort of break apart a bit more.
Yeah, yeah. There's a lot of playmakers on Calgary too. Obviously, Gaudreau, Kachuk. I think you mentioned that. But yeah, I think with the talent they have, I think they should be a playoff team with all the players they have, with all the talent they have on that roster. But obviously, anything can change. But yeah, I'll just say for now, as I mentioned, that with how they're built and having played less games than like teams like Edmonton and Montreal and Toronto, I think just for now, I'll say that they become the fourth team in the Canadian division.
Yeah, and the Jets and Flames both have 3 games in hand over the Oilers as well. They've both played 13 and the Oilers played 16. So if they win a game or two each, not to mention if they win three, then they'll both be in the playoffs and Oilers will be out, of course. So um, this so a lot can happen, of course, and I guess it depends also as well as who's the most games against Ottawa coming up, because there's a
Yeah.
sort of free points at the moment, unfortunately for Senators fans, but that's just the way it is at the moment, I guess.
Yeah, and we do have nine more Battle of Alberta games to go this season, so we'll have to buckle up for that and see what happens there.
Yeah. There's also been continuing COVID issues in the NHL. It's a story that won't go away, I don't think, as much as you want it to, of course. There's a few teams on pause, as you mentioned. Do you think there's a cause for concern at the moment? Like, do you worry at all that we'll talk about this again later, but do you worry about all that we're heading towards like cancellations, withdrawals, postponements, bubbles, that kind of thing?
I guess I'll say briefly, I don't think we're going to lead to cancellation. I don't think they're going to cancel the season. I don't see any reason why they would have to. But obviously, by the way it's looking right now with all the postponements we're seeing, it seems inevitable that they would have to push this season maybe like one or 2 weeks ahead to give these teams that have missed a lot of games recently to make them up after the what should be the end of the season. But yeah, I'll say right now I don't think there's going to be a reason to cancel it, but um, I just think we might have to get to a situation where it might go off of winning percentage instead of games played. So I think we might get to that kind of situation if there's more outbreaks like we've seen, like for example New Jersey, who's had as many as like 17 or 18 players on the COVID protocol list. So yeah, I just think if we get to continue to get to that point, there's we might have to go off of winning percentage.
Yeah, winning percentage, I think is maybe where we're heading as well. Like, also, I think it depends on which teams are the ones who need to make up games, right? Like, if the Senators and the Red Wings are the teams who need to make up games, I don't think they're going to play them, um, unless they have implications for other teams in the standings. Like for example, if the Senators and Canucks had 2 games to make up at the end of the season and they're still in the position they are now, I don't think they'd bother playing them. Um, but I guess obviously only time will tell. Hopefully, we won't have to get to that point. Hopefully, everyone will be able to play all their games. But as you mentioned, we keep seeing more outbreaks. You mentioned New Jersey and I think Philadelphia as well. So there's a few outbreaks happening around the NHL at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. Also, as you mentioned too, there are a lot of outbreaks, and um, I mean, we also had I think yesterday too. It was like the Oilers and Canadiens had to push back the start of the game by an hour because they had to wait for test results, I guess. So obviously things like that. It's one of the many challenging things the NHL is facing this season. And they also did add some protocols. I think it includes rapid testing on game days, if I'm not wrong. So I don't know. We'll have to see what happens. But yeah, if they get to that point where they can't finish all their games, I think they'll have to go off of winning percentage.
And heading towards the playoffs, they're still a long time away, of course. But do you think the answer for the playoffs might be a playoff bubble, like we saw last year? Like have maybe like a month in a bubble just to make sure there's absolutely no outbreaks and no postponements for like the biggest time of the season, I guess.
Well, I mean, first of all, we should hope that, conditions are better
Yeah.
come May time. But I think if this kind of thing continues, I mean, I wouldn't I mean, I'm thinking of a scenario where, Canadian teams aren't like one Canadian team who has to travel to the US, to play them in the Final Four playoff series, which is supposed to be this season, obviously, with one Canadian team making it out, like making it out of the division, like to be part of the Final Four. If there has to be that kind of situation, maybe they might have to do a bubble format. But uh, I think they just want uh, I think they just want teams to play out of their home arenas, and I think that's obviously what they want to continue to do with more teams letting fans in, like at certain capacities. Like I think Columbus and also a couple New York teams recently have been given permission to host fans. So I think if that continues, I mean it's kind of a yes or no situation, just depending on like everything that's going on with the fan situation, and they want to obviously make more money off of that. But yeah, I mean if we get to that point, maybe, but it's too early to tell now, I'd say.
Yeah, and I also think it's probably reasonable, I guess, to expect that when the Canadian team is decided, but I don't think we're going to see games being moved back and forth across the border if they are allowed to play in home markets. Um, if assuming that the 14-day quarantine rule is still in effect, I can't see them giving permission for a sports team. And they obviously also don't want to play a game over 6 weeks or something. They have to quarantine for 2 weeks every time. So um, I think that's probably a reasonable expectation as well. Is that when the Final Four is decided, that the Canadian team will either go to the U.S. or the 3 U.S. teams will come to Canada, but presumably the Canadian team going south.
Yeah, that will definitely it will be definitely be an interesting situation, but something definitely look out for. Um, I guess also our final thing we'll talk about is the outdoor games, which I mean I've kind of forgot about, honestly, but they're starting next weekend with 2 games going on. Of course, on Saturday, next Saturday, it's supposed to be Vegas with Colorado on the Saturday game, and then Sunday it's supposed to be Philadelphia and Boston. Have you been looking forward to this, Ben? Any recently, considering it's coming up pretty soon?
I'll be honest, I completely forgot they were happening as well until about 2 hours ago. So I'm looking forward to them. I always love the outdoor games, and there's a couple good games there too. 4 really good teams and a couple of good rivalries there. So there will be good games, I think. Outdoor games are always a good occasion. They're always fun to watch, and We didn't get a Winter Classic this year, so um, it's kind of a nice substitute, I guess, for that. Um, yeah, again, I completely forgot that they were happening, but pleasantly surprised, shall I say? What about you?
Yeah. Yeah, I like you, I almost forgot honestly what's happening as well. But yeah, as you mentioned that obviously there's not going to be any Winter Classic game happening this season. I think that makes up having two of those games in Lake Tahoe makes up for it. It's going to be interesting to see. I haven't really seen any of the development of the rink and all that yet, but I mean, I can only imagine that they're going to be playing in a background of obviously with a lot of mountains and everything, just getting that kind of hockey vibe. But yeah, I mean, I'll say I'm excited for it, but yeah, just kind of forgot about it to be honest.
Yeah, definitely. Outdoor games are always fun to watch, and I'm not sure. Are they making special jerseys for these games? They usually do that for Winter Classics and stuff.
I would assume so, but I haven't heard much about it. But I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if they did though.
Yeah, there's been a lot of nice Winter Classic jerseys over the years, of course, and a lot of classic games as well. Of course, why they called the Winter Classic, and hopefully you get some more good games next weekend.
Yeah, definitely. I guess anything else to add on the NHL before we move to our final topic?
No, I think I'm good to go.
All right. Well, I guess in that case, obviously, talking about the big elephant in the room, COVID, of course, um, continuing to pounder on with plans in the sports world. But yeah, I guess do you want to introduce where to start in this topic? I guess.
Yeah, I guess the big topic in Canada is, will the Canadian teams continue to play in Canada in various sports, or will they go down to the States or elsewhere? The NHL's playing in Canada; they're playing in their home markets, but uh, and you know that the Raptors are going to be staying down in Tampa for the rest of the year, rest of the season rather. But we don't know about the Blue Jays. We don't know about the three Canadian MLS teams, um, and we'll get to the Olympics after. We'll do the Olympics last, I think. But we'll start with the MLB and MLS. Do you think there's any chance we see them play in Canada to start the season anyway?
I don't, unfortunately. I don't see any kind of situation where they would start out in Toronto or, in the case of the MLS teams, Vancouver, Montreal, or Toronto. Um, I mean, obviously, I know it's tough for these players, especially if they're living in Canada, usually during a regular season. I know obviously it's tough for them. Um, I think obviously with all the border restrictions being in place since essentially March, like for closer to a year now, I think it's undoubt. I think there's no doubt that they'll have to start out in the U.S.
Yeah, unfortunately, I agree. Like we saw last year with the three MLS teams, with Vancouver down in Portland, Montreal down in New Jersey, I think, and Toronto were down in Hartford, kind of making their own little hub cities. So, unfortunately, I see that happening the same way this year for the MLS teams anyway. It sounds as if they're sort of expecting that to be the case. We've heard this week as well that the Blue Jays are considering playing in Dunedin, Florida, their home, of their spring training. And we've also heard a rumor, I guess, going around on Twitter that Toronto FC might go to play at Raymond James Stadium, which is where the Super Bowl was this past weekend down in Tampa Bay. So there's definitely some good venues out there for them to play. But I guess the hope is obviously that they won't need to. But I don't see the border restrictions changing before I think the start of April. I think is when the MLS season starts, and MLB season is usually not long after that.
Yeah, I mean, it would be great to see TFC play out of Raymond James to get some of that, kind of winning Super Bowl luck that Tampa Bay had, but and hopefully happens with the Raps too, considering all the Tampa Bay like the recent Tampa Bay sports success that they've had with like the Rays, Lightning, and obviously the Bucks, for example. But um, yeah, I mean, it would definitely. I mean, playing out of Florida, I think has been like I guess in the Jays situation, like playing out of their spring training stadium is I mean, one of the other kind of situations that they might be in. I mean, also, I wouldn't be surprised to see them play out in Buffalo too. See what happened in the 2020 season. But yeah, a lot of obviously a lot of options for them, as you mentioned. But I guess we'll have to see, these uh, what these two teams announce, I guess, in the coming months before the season starts.
Yeah, I think for the Jays, I'd still prefer Buffalo. I think it's just a nicer ballpark, and it's closer to a few of the teams that have to play, like Baltimore, Boston, and New York are closer to Buffalo than they are to Tampa or Dunedin. So for the Jays, I think I'd like to see them play in Buffalo. TFC, I like them in Hartford. I think that was a pretty cool, unfortunate, but pretty cool scenario they were in. It makes more sense to me than Raymond James Stadium. But I guess we'll have to wait and see, I guess, with that.
Yeah, I mean, also, I guess, we wonder where Montreal and Vancouver in the MLS are going to play this upcoming season. Do you see where would you see Vancouver and Montreal playing if obviously they'll have to play out the U.S.?
I think Vancouver had a pretty good situation going on when they were in Portland last year. They shared that stadium and was pretty successful, I think. Didn't step on each other's toes too much, and they played each other a couple times too. So I wouldn't be surprised to see them in either Portland or Seattle, like somewhere up north in the U.S. As for Montreal, I'm not really sure. I guess it maybe depends on where TFC go. If TFC go to Raymond James, maybe they'll go to Hartford, or maybe vice versa. Maybe Montreal will go down to Florida. So that's a possibility. Or maybe Montreal will go back to Red Bull Arena where they were last year, I believe. Um, yeah, there's a lot of options. There's an interesting decision to be made, I guess, in the coming weeks by these Canadian teams, and it gives the benefit for all these teams as well as the Blue Jays, of course, is all these stadiums are TV ready as well. Like for the Jays especially, like they made Buffalo an MLB caliber stadium, I guess, and Dunedin has TV capabilities, and the three MLS stadiums possibilities of really good TV facilities, as we saw with the Super Bowl, these crazy camera angles they got. So that is an important part of the decision, I think, and I guess we'll probably have some news for you the next couple of weeks, I guess, on where these teams end up.
Yeah, definitely a lot of great points there. I mean, obviously you mentioned the Jays revamping Salem Field uh, for the 2020 season for them to play out of Buffalo. So yeah, obviously that's one of the many situations in their case, and also I guess for the MLS side, yeah, I do agree that Portland or Seattle for the Vancouver Whitecaps might be a good situation for them. And then I guess for you mentioned too Montreal, if they can't play in New York for some reason, maybe go back to Hartford where TFC played, or maybe the two can share the stadium together or something. But yeah, I guess as you mentioned, we'll see what happens though.
Yeah, and there's also brand new MLS stadiums in Columbus. They're going to open their new stadium this year, and DC have a nice new stadium. So I'm sure Montreal wouldn't mind playing in one of those stadiums instead of the dump they play in now. So we'll have to wait and see. As I keep saying, another event, of course, which is made up sort of a bubble of sorts, is the Australian Open. We've been seeing that start up this week. There's a few Canadians playing really well, actually. We won't get into it too much on the court for now. We'll get to that maybe next episode. But what have you made of the whole bubble and quarantine sort of situation they've been doing?
Yeah, I mean, obviously the big story of the week, or I guess in the fan or COVID essence, is the Australian Open deciding not to have fans. I think it was the area decided to go into a 5-day lockdown or something because of a quarantine hotel member testing positive, if I'm not wrong. So yeah, obviously, these kind of situations are concerning, and hopefully, everyone, like all the players and fans that decide to attend the games, are doing well. I mean, it kind of looked like normal life there. Like just just watching some of the matches there was, gave it a different kind of feel for what we hope to be a regular return to life soon. But I think in the sense of COVID, it's I think they've done well. There's been some challenges. Of course, some players had to, you know, like deal with. I think there was a situation where they had another hotel. Was it a hotel rep or someone else, if I'm not wrong, having to test positive, and then they had to quarantine for another little bit of time. So, there's been some bumpy parts to this whole thing, but I mean, obviously, they're still playing matches, which is, I guess, most important for them.
Yeah, I wish every other country took COVID as seriously as Australia did in some ways. Like they're some states I think have zero cases in Australia for a while now. So um, yeah, they deserve to have this tennis tournament going on, and hopefully the rest of the tournament is COVID free. And um, yeah, it's been entertaining on the court so far, and hopefully they get to finish the tournament as scheduled.
Yeah, and obviously, you mentioned we'll probably get into it next week, but yeah, a lot of Canadian action going on with the recent Shapovalov and OG Aliassime, sorry, matchup. But yeah, it's been exciting so far. I guess I'd say to be a Canadian tennis player fan. Sorry, especially since they went 5 for 5 on day one.
Yeah, and Milos Raonic is still in it too. And one more tournament these people will be hoping to play with, of course, is the Summer Olympics, Tokyo 2020 or Tokyo 2021, I guess. Um, we kind of touched on this, I think, before, but what do you sort of think is going to happen with those games? Like, we're not really hearing much, whether or not they're going to go ahead or not.
Well, I think it's better that they don't try to put out too much info, just because then people will start bringing out their own concerns and all that stuff. So I think they're gonna go on. I think obviously, as we've talked about for the NHL recently in May, with all the situations there, we hope that COVID gets better in the next 4 or 5 months leading up to the Tokyo Olympics in July. I mean, right now I'd say that they would happen with obviously the right measures in place. I think they're going to probably announce more in the coming months before the Olympics officially start. Um, but yeah, it's just, of course, it's basically just adapting to a COVID life, which is something I guess the athletes will have to do in their 2 week stay at the in Tokyo.
And it sounds like a lot of the qualifiers are starting to go ahead. Like, for some qualifiers, they're going to happen in country. Like, a lot of sprinting events, I think, are going to happen with just Canadians racing, and they're going to get the top two or three or whatever. But some sports aren't as lucky as that. Like soccer and basketball are both going to go ahead over the next month. It sounds like. I think Team Canada just released their roster today, actually, for the basketball. So we'll have to wait and see what happens with the qualifying tournaments as well, of course.
Yeah, and yeah, as you mentioned, there's a lot of. I mean, there's already been a lot of uh, players already qualified in teams too for the tournament or for the Olympics, I should say. But yeah, there's probably gonna be, they're gonna vamp up a lot more qualification tournaments, I guess, in the next coming months before leading to the Tokyo Olympics. And obviously, the big ones for, I guess, coming out of the Canadian side is the Canadian soccer team hoping to qualify for the Olympics, and also the Canadian basketball team, which is going to, I think, play their qualification tournament out in BC. So, yeah, we'll have to see obviously what happens with all those situations.
Yeah, I think we touched on this last week, I think, as well. But we're less than a year now from Beijing 2022 as well. So I guess we'll have to wait and see. Hopefully, we'll be in a better place by then. With in terms of COVID, I think it's honestly, I expect that we will, but that's definitely what people are planning for, of course. So I'll have to wait and see how qualifiers for those games work as well, because obviously we can't qualify over the summer in most winter sports. So I'll have to wait and see how that works as well, and hopefully those games remain on schedule and untouched, unlike Tokyo 2020.
Yeah, and also I know athletes definitely want to, like most definitely want to play in this Summer Olympics coming in July, and I think obviously some of them have said that it's been, it's a mental kind of game, for them to prepare for this Olympics, and hope that there's no major issues that are going to happen. And obviously, for some players, or for some athletes, I guess, if they decide to retire after these Olympics, I think most of them definitely do want to you know go out there for one last time and show compete. But yeah, it's a lot of things to adapt to, though.
And you mentioned the mental side of things as well. Like yesterday, I believe, or maybe it was 2 days ago, Team Canada did a video on Twitter, like a live stream kind of thing with like Patrick Chan was there, Katrina LeMay Doan was there, John Montgomery was there. There's a few of these sort of elite best athletes of all time in their sport kind of people on the Team Canada Twitter account. So I definitely recommend giving that a watch if you have a moment. For you and anyone watching, of course, it is really good and sort of touches on that sort of mental side of sports as well. It's definitely something to think about after the past year and what the next year could look like as well.
For sure. And obviously, if there's, I guess, obviously, if there's any more updates regarding the Olympics and also, qualification tournaments and whatever, we'll obviously bring that to you here on OTS.
Yeah, definitely. Anything else on COVID or anything else from this video?
I think I'm all good, if unless you want to add something.
No, I think I'm pretty good for this episode.
All right. Well, I guess in that case, then, thank you guys for watching episode 24 of OTS. My name's Matthew Lean-Bruni.
My name is Benedict.
Thank you guys for watching. We'll see you next time.